All right, ladies and gentlemen, it seems like our attendees list has stabilized. Good afternoon. Thank you very much for being here today. My name is Tim Tyrrell. I represent OUTA through our Community Action Network, which is a digital platform which is designed to help community organizations organize and mobilize themselves to become more effective in their interactions with their local municipalities. But today's topic, while we may touch on that a little later, is to focus on the very burning issue which is in everybody's minds right now, particularly ratepayers, and that is the current round of property valuations which have been done by your municipality, where for what is known as the valuation cycle, this is a 5-year event. This year is a full valuation, so every property in the Plaatje municipality area will have been re-evaluated. What this means is that your rates in turn will be determined based on the agreed, and I say agreed deliberately, property value between you and the municipality. What the municipality does is that they go through an exercise where they use certain formulae and algorithms, and they will determine through a desktop exercise a value for your property. That gets published on the valuation roll. And what we will do a little later is to take you through a process where you can first of all discover what that valuation is, then compare it with the valuation that's been compared or presented to you on your most recent consolidated bill, which has come from the municipality, which is your monthly bill, which gives you all your bulk services, electricity, water, rates, sewage, refuse collection, etc., etc. So in that will be given a published view of your property, but we'll go into the detail of that a little bit later. The object of this webinar is for us to unpack that process for you as ratepayers in Plaatje, to give you an opportunity to A, check your municipal valuation of your property, and B, where there are discrepancies between the current valuation, which has recently been done, and the existing value which appears on your municipal bill, it gives you a platform on which to make a decision whether you want to challenge them and to lodge an engagement or an objection even, which then will put you into a space where you can negotiate or discuss the current valuation of your property with the municipality. So we have a couple of experts to lead us through the process. As I said, my name is Tim Tyrrell. I'm involved very much with this process of valuations. We've done a couple of webinars in different centers, and we have several more planned. I will also be supported by our guest panelist, who is Tumelo Masikari. Tumelo is a resident of Plaatje and is affiliated to the Plaatje Residents Association and has been referred to me very kindly by the chair of that organization, a gentleman known as Lo van Rienen, who some of you may know. So I'm going to be asking Tumelo shortly to give me give us an overview of the situation in Plaatje, how the current set of valuations has gone down among citizens and residents, to give us a backdrop against which we can offer some assistance to ratepayers as if they choose to engage with the municipality through the prescribed process. I'd also like to introduce our executive manager in charge of our social innovation division at OUTA, and that is Julius Kleinhans. Julius and I work very closely. There are 2 other initiatives in the social innovation division, of which the Community Action Network is one. The second is known as Link, which is a reporting platform for mobile phone holders, and it gives them an opportunity using geolocation and live in real time to be able to report issues which they observe in their daily rounds within the municipality. So potholes, sewage, leaking taps, electricity issues, they can be reported in a live, dynamic fashion into the municipality. And if we back end that system into the municipality's ERP, which is the resource platform, then they will be able to process that information and integrate it with their distribution and scheduling of teams and jobs to be able to get these issues attended to. The third leg of the social innovation division is known as WaterCan, where we have an initiative which is designed to track the state of water in South Africa on 2 levels. One is the quality and quantity of potable water, drinking water in other words, and the supply to various communities. And the other, which is a very burning issue right now, is to examine the quality and report on the quality of groundwater, particularly as it pertains to sewage pollution, which seems to be a dreadful problem in many municipalities around the country. But more about that from Julius in a short while. So I'd like to kick off proceedings by asking Tumelo to talk to the group and to give us some background on the municipal valuations exercise which is being conducted at the moment, and to perhaps give us some examples and to tell us a little bit about what's going down in Kimberley. Tumelo, over to you. We have an audio connection issue. I'm afraid we don't hear you.
I think maybe for the time being, whilst our technical team will engage with Tumelo, I'll elaborate on this. So thanks for that, Tumelo. So yeah, I think it's very important for community members to understand their rights when it comes to municipal affairs. Municipalities and our democracy has been set up to such an extent where communities are, in essence, the shareholder of their municipalities, and the municipalities need to provide a strongly mandated service. And in this process, we've seen that, you know, a lot of community members are not really understanding their rights and practicing those rights efficiently. When it comes to the topic of property rights, that is one of them. And we can get into a lot of other processes as well. And that's why the Community Action Network will engage on various initiatives to help inform communities better so that they can better participate. Now, with property rights specifically, I think what's important to note is we're in a valuation process. That's when your municipality looks at the property valuation and they determine the value of your property through their methodology. And what we see around the country currently is what they call the valuation roll, where these municipalities determine the property rates on what a willing buyer would have bought that property from a willing seller on the 1st of July 2022. So this is based on a market value last year. And I think that's very important. So from that determination, they quantify the amount of rates that they'll be charging. But I think what I just need to establish is that one has to go through a process in the valuation role where you can see whether that is fair, you know, and compare it to what you believe the market value is. But one has to be able to prove that it is the market value, because one cannot try and manipulate the situation saying that, well, if a municipality wants to charge me rates, my property is worth R1 million, but if I want to sell it, it's worth R4 million. And that's not fair. And I think it's also important to note that should one object against an error that your municipality makes, and by all means we've seen a lot of these errors before, where the municipality quantifies the rates or, you know, determines your property's rate at a value that is completely out of reach. You know, one has to ensure that you put the right reasons and you know, determinations in place should you object on such a valuation, because it's illegal and fraudulent to try and manipulate a property rights process to favor yourself and your budget. I just wanted to quickly lead that intro. Tumelo, are you back? Not yet. I think, thanks, Tumelo. So I think that's very important. So the property rates valuation is where you can go look at your value and, you know, compare it. Then should you have a problem with it, you can object. And should you object, you need to ensure that you do it from a position of fact and not necessarily emotion. And that's very important. But yeah, thanks, Tim. I think over to you if you want to maybe just take the team through the process of the valuation, I think, and then we can wait for Tumela to join us again.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Julius. Sorry about the connectivity issues that Tumela is battling with. So I'm going to jump the queue. I'd like to spend just a little while taking you, the listeners, through a process and the prescribed process, which is mandated. In other words, it's required by each municipality to offer ratepayers so that they can engage with the municipality to lodge and process any objections if they feel that that's necessary. But before I launch into an explanation of that process, I see we've got a couple of additional participants now. We're well over 50. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. If you wish to lodge a question, we may not have the chance to open it up into a general discussion. So may I invite you to drop your questions into the chat box so that we can at least keep track of what those concerns are. We will be able to come back perhaps to a couple of them at least. And then at the end of the session, we will email everybody and make sure that you have a copy of this webinar so that you can refer back to it and understand the process in order to be able to engage with the municipality. So without further ado, if you will allow me, I'm going to share my screen and allow me to just do that quickly.
Yeah, so I'll just continue from my side.
Thank you.
So when we go on to the Plaatje municipality, you can see there's a link that we will share with you, and there will also be an email that will follow to everyone that's registered to this webinar following the session. Firstly, I think we just wanted to, we would like to explain that, you know, when you look at the valuation on this page, we've seen in some municipalities that some properties have been estimated at, you know, as an example, like Ekurhuleni, 2,650% over the property value. Now you can imagine that is basically a percentage that your property rates would have shot up on. Then also you get some municipalities where property value has dropped. So you see some of these percentages dropping, so that where you're paying less on your rates. And I think that is quite important as well to note. And that's the process and the methodology that the municipality has used in the past and now to determine property rates. This property rates roll is open from the 20th of February and it closes on the 21st of April this year. So it's very important to go onto this website, which we'll share the link with you, but you have to participate in the valuation roll before the 21st of April this year. It's very important because after that deadline, you will not be able to participate anymore. And you will get your new rates by July on your bill. So that is very important for people to participate. Now, we've made it quite easy for you. So you can find your property by clicking on this link. And again, we'll share all this with you. The whole valuation roll is there. Just to minimize my screen. There's various properties noted down on the valuation roll, and their market value as per the municipality has determined it. So it's important for you to go and find your property on here, and then look at the value that the municipality has determined. Now, what's important is you need to now go and see whether this is a fair market value or not. So when you go back to our website, we've put together a very easy method that you can come and look at, a 6-step process that you can follow. But firstly, you know, just for the ease of use for people out there, how do you calculate this? Well, we've got a property calculator on there that gives you an estimate of your value on that property. So should we say that, you know, if the property value was, let's say, R1 million on there, and there's a raised exemption. One has to determine that in your municipality through the municipal property rights policy, which would have been shared with you. And that will also work in the calculation whether there's an exemption on the full amount. And then one has to also apply the municipal tariff that comes with that property rights policy. Now, should we say that that is, for instance, this amount that your municipality has determined, then it basically pitches out the amount you will pay on property rates for the year. And if you divide that by 12, obviously, it gives you the amount that you are estimated to pay on that property on a monthly basis. So this is just how the calculator works. It's actually very easy, and folks can go and determine that. But just coming back to this, so before the 21st of April, you have to go through the following process. Firstly, as I've shown you, determine the value of your property. Secondly, look at your municipal invoice. Usually the value of your property is on that invoice, and now you can already compare your current value with your determined value and do the calculation accordingly to see what the difference would be. If the value has a significant increase, I think it's important to determine whether you want to object to reduce that property rights value. This is important. You know, we've seen some properties increase over 50% in value over the last 5 years. And, you know, yes, in certain suburbs and areas that's possible, but one has to determine whether it's fair and reasonable. And we believe that, you know, anything that's above double-digit figures is questionable, and one has to make sure that that is fair. If it is a fair value, then you don't need to do anything else. Then you can be happy your municipality has followed the proper process, and there's no need for you to do anything else. But should you see that that property has excessively increased in value, and this will have a significant effect on your cash flow and your monthly bill, I think it's very important that you follow the next step, and that is where you can firstly determine what the real value of your property is, and that you can do through, you know, estate agents or specialists out there. We've also pitched in an easy method where you can click here and it takes you to the Lightstone website where you can buy a report. It's 172 Rand on your property, which gives you, you know, about a 70% accuracy and an indication of what the properties in your areas have been selling for, and also what is the estimate value of your property currently through the Lightstone community or business platform. But yeah, so get a comparative valuation that is fair and accurate, and then you need to go into the process of lodging a formal objection with the Plaatje municipality, and that you can do by clicking here. So we've really condensed all the necessary steps and actions that you need to do. As you can see on the Plaatje municipality here, there's a lot of jargon in here of acts and what applies and where. It's important to just determine the process on how to object, but you will see at the bottom over here is the important documentation that they will refer to. So you'll have to complete this documentation accordingly, and then submit it to the correct people in objecting this valuation. So there's residential, business, and agricultural properties. If we click on residential as an example, this is what the form looks like, and you obviously just complete it accordingly with your personal details and as they're required. So it's actually a very basic method to follow, and if you complete all this information, you should have sufficient information to lodge your objection. That's basically it. So there's some frequently asked questions at the bottom here that you can also refer to. I'm sure there's a lot of questions that's popping up in one's mind, and we've really tried to break it down and simplify it into layman's terms. So please feel free to go and visit the site. And I think that's basically it from me, taking you through that process. So I don't know, Tumelo, if you are back, do you want to quickly engage? Thank you.
I think everything has been sorted out now. I've had to switch over to the phone. Am I audible?
You are indeed. Thank you, Tumelo. Thank you, Julius.
Thank you very much, Julius. And thank you for that web page where people can calculate the value and see the information. So since the start of this project, sharing the information on the various community WhatsApp groups, there have been people that have been coming forward and saying my property has been valued much higher than what it should. And there's been people that didn't understand how this affects them in the long run. Mind you, the municipality has also published in the local newspaper, they've published in the DFA, they've published that there's a call for property owners to come forward and object to the, or rather to come and review their property values, the new valuation. But I think there's a challenge of people fully understanding what it means, what this valuation means to them now and what it would mean in the next 4 years. So this webinar, I think, would and the website that you've created, the page that you've created where people can calculate, has opened many people's eyes, because there's a challenge now. Last year was the beginning of the 2022-2023 financial year, which ends this June. And there was a court case by one of the property owners that they took the municipality to court, and they've subsequently won the case. And now the property is being, the budget of the municipality reflected before the case was concluded that their property owner would be at a lower rate for rates and taxes. So it kind of came across as if it was accepting guilt, for example. Now that's a very big property owner within the city. It means the municipality would need to cover those costs somehow. The valuation in the past has been done where people are saying, and I don't know the full process, but people have made the assertion that someone stands on the corner, and probably that's not how it happens. Someone stands on the corner and says, okay, because there's a swimming pool in that yard, and because this house is big, this whole street will be valued at 1 million per household, for example. But the process is probably much complicated than that. And the experts need to be consulted to make sure that your valuation as a property owner is correct, especially big businesses and especially households, because it's easy for the change of households to be, the value of the change of households to be done, and for the next 4 years, you can't do anything about it. My grandfather, for example, I checked after logging onto the website and checking the calculations. I checked on the PDF that has all the properties that they valued. My grandfather's property is valued 20% more, 23.07% more than what it was.
Oh dear, it seems we've lost Tumelo. So my apologies for that. Ivor will try and get him back. Thank you, Ivor. There are just a couple of things that I wanted to refer to, and I'm sorry about the technical gremlins. It seems like I'm unable to share my screen for some odd reason. When Julius was taking you through that schedule, which was giving a whole lot of detail from the municipality, there's a very important point that comes up to the bottom of that list, which everybody should be aware of. In many municipalities, the opportunity to lodge an objection is made available through email. That is not the case in Plaatje. There are addresses given there, and there are people to whom those objections must be addressed. The forms need to be filled in manually, and they need to be delivered by hand to the various points that are offered as collection points for those objections. And that all has to happen before the 21st of April. So if you switch on your computer on the 20th of April saying, well, don't worry, I'll send an email and I'll put all my detail onto email, I'm sorry to have to tell you that that is not catered for in this process, and you're going to have to lodge your objection manually with a hard copy of your objection form filled in. So please just remember that. Tumelo, I see you're back. I'll keep my fingers crossed that your audio is intact. Would you like to carry on?
Yes, please. I don't know what's going on. But so there have been households that have come. For example, there's this one household where the lady is saying the household used to be valued at 55,000. Is it 55,000 rands in 2014, and right now it's 330 something thousand rands. The value has jumped.
Yeah.
Has jumped through the roof, and it's frustrating people. There's also not only about the value of the house going up for the next 4 years, but in the case of this lady where it's a deceased estate, she's stuck. They can't do anything. There's debt on the house because of the rates and taxes and other services. Even if she does pay for the debt, the accumulated debt, the mistake that was made possibly is not being corrected, meaning the value of the house will keep going up, and then the debt of that house will accumulate again. So there's a need to actually fix things before it gets worse. Normally, we have the tendency of waiting for things to get bad, complaining about it on social media, on WhatsApp, on Facebook. And when we are supposed to actually do something about it and have the opportunity to do something about it, then we relax and wait for the last minute, and we don't follow the right procedures, or we just write the complaint on Facebook and expect that to be an objection to the municipality. On the side of the municipality, they've done their part where they've done the valuation and they've actually published that it's open now for consultation. If we as the residents, businesses, do not object or do not check that at least the valuation was done correctly, then it means we're accepting whatever is coming for the next 4 years, and we cannot complain afterwards and say, but this is too much, I'm paying too much. At that point, it's too late. We have from now until the 21st of April, I believe, to do something about it, something that doesn't require protest, something that doesn't require legal action being taken.
Yeah, good point, Tumelo. Thank you very much. And I think it would be in everybody's interests to take note of that.
Hello, Tim.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, good point. Thank you very much, Tumelo. And something that your ratepayers in Plaatje would be well advised to bear in mind. There are a couple of questions that I want to just address that are popping up in the chat. One comes from Jan Duplessis, which says, where do I get the property list to see the new value? Jan, if you recall at the early part of Julius's presentation, the first link which is offered on the OUTA website says, click here. If you go onto that, you will see that there is a complete list. It's a full PDF of every single property in the municipality. You need to browse through that list and find which is your property, which suburb, which address, all the property details, and that must obviously be dictated by the property identity that comes on your consolidated bill. So once you find that on that list, that will give you the market-related value of your property. I think what is very important is that the principal guideline of this whole exercise is that municipalities are advised that the whole valuation exercise should be based on market-related values. Now, there are various different opinions as to what a market-related value is, I grant that, but there are some very glaring examples of where the current value is completely out of kilter with the previous value or even the value before that. So you need to be alert. Remember, this is working on a 4-year cycle. So if you apply an escalation of 3 or 4% on your property values over a 4-year cycle, they'll give you 16 or 17% over a 4-year period. Now, that may be true on paper, but if you are satisfied that you could sell your property for something in the region of 17% more than what it was valued at in 2018, then you don't have an objection. But remember, that what looks like a huge jump in value from over 20%, but remember it's over 4 years. So it may not be quite so alarming as you think it is. But these are all factors to bear in mind when you're comparing current value with the newly offered value in terms of the current value, your old value compared to what is offered on the new valuation roll. There's another thing that is important here, and that is, and you will see it on the website if you go through the suggested process, we work closely in collaboration with an independent property valuing organization called Lightstone. They offer a service where by email and by request on their website, you can get a valuation which is done completely independently by them for a small fee. Now, I understand that people may not be always happy to pay fees, and there are other ways of getting your properties valued through independent opinions. You will find that some of the larger estate agencies in your location will offer that service. So if you're looking for an independent valuation, it might be worthwhile to engage with them. As I say, we have a relationship and we have reliably used the services from Lightstone before. They are probably best known in the country for their independent valuation service and expertise. So please feel free to look up their website, Lightstone, Lightstone. The process from then on is very simple and straightforward. If you give your property details to them, they will charge you a fee. I think it's 172 Rand for an independent valuation, but it gives you a sound, well-reasoned, properly calculated valuation of your property as a comparison base for what's been thrown at you by the municipality. So these are all hints and tips that you need to bear in mind. Tumelo, do you have anything to add to that? These are kind of local issues which I'm wanting to touch on. It is important to be able to secure the services of an independent valuer if you are getting into the space where you think you should be disputing what the municipality has offered you. Anything else that comes to mind from your point of view?
Not really, just that one of the things that was raised yesterday on the WhatsApp groups was that what if you believe that the value of your property or the municipality has valued your property lower actually, and you've probably done improvements on the property? What then? Do you still have to write an objection and whatnot?
Look, I think it's probably not. I think what everybody would like is for the municipal valuation of their property to go down, because that automatically means that there will be a downward adjustment on the rates that get charged on your property. But you know, if one is honest with oneself and that there is clearly a discrepancy or even a mistake, then it is the honorable thing to do to bring that to the municipality's attention. Unfortunately, many people will say, oh, that works in my favor. I'm not going to say anything. I'll just shut up. And I suppose people are entitled to make that decision. But you'll find that those examples are in the substantial minority, and you will find in turn that most of the deviations and the ones that cause people to raise their eyebrows are excessive valuations. Bear in mind that in most municipalities, the extent of the revenue generated by property rates is somewhere around about 20, 22, maybe even 23%. So nearly a quarter of municipal revenue is kind of captive and is automatically dragged out of property owners in the municipality. Now, when I say dragged out, I don't want this to sound like there is a confrontational situation developing here. And this is an important thing to remember. When we engage with the municipality, it is strongly recommended that you do it on a very constructive basis. Nobody wins when there's a fight and when people get angry and when people start throwing their hands up in horror. And we've been asked a question in the chat, is it possible to get some examples of wording that we can use in our objection? I'm not going to go into that sort of detail and script or suggest a script that you use, but there is a very important principle here, and that is that you need to couch or frame your objection in such a way that you are respectfully engaging with the municipality because you are aware of what appear to be discrepancies and you would like that to be reevaluated. That's a much better departure point than to say, listen, you guys, this is outrageous. You've overvalued my property by 80% and that's completely unacceptable. And what are you going to do about it? You're going to get much less cooperation from municipal officials if you if you engage with that tone. So I know municipalities and dealing with government structures is often very frustrating, but it is a useful thing to bear in mind. You'll get far further if you are constructive and positive in your tone of engagement. So for Edward Maluli, who asked that question, that's my suggestion to you. Be careful not to be confrontational, angry, and perhaps even abusive. That's unlikely to get you anywhere and will probably make your case worse rather than better. All right. So thank you, everybody. Julius, any further thoughts?
Yeah, look, I think I just browsed through some of the questions quick, and just to highlight again, we will share the information of all the links via the email address that you've registered onto the webinar, so that you've got access to all that information. I think that's just the easiest process from our side. The one question from Andre van der Merwe regarding the concern of the formula, I think it is something that OUTA is exploring, that I'd like us to look at a bit more in detail, because this is a problem across the whole country. You see, because what people don't keep in mind, and Tumelo's touched on it earlier, is that your valuation is calculated now and your rates accordingly, and that will apply in July this year. But there's another increase coming, and that's every year, where it is in line with inflation. So that means that your property value, if they determine it's 25% more now, applying to your rates, let's say, just, not going into too much details, but let's say your property rates go up by 25%. It means next year it's another 4% coming, and the year after another 4%, and the year after another 4%. So it is quite excessive, and it becomes unsustainable. And the risk the municipality is sitting with is, firstly, affordability on just paying for services, a pushback from communities because they're paying more, yet they're not getting more in return. And I think that is applicable in most municipalities. I cannot speak on behalf of the Salt Plaatje municipality and its community, as I don't stay there. But it's really a big problem. And at the end of the day, the compounding effect over time almost, forces you out of your house. So I think one has to revisit this. And that's something I think we will definitely look at as OUTA specifically, the organization on doing tax abuse. In fact, just on that matter, for those of you who don't know who OUTA is a non-profit organization that's been established to address maladministration and corruption in the country. I'm sure people have heard about the e-tolls in Johannesburg, and we're the organization that challenged that, but we're also the organization where the OUTA leaks got leaked at, and we built those cases and started challenging corruption, and that's evolved over time. And now I think the big projects we're currently busy with is challenging the state of disaster on energy, because we don't believe that it is a state of disaster, because the state is the disaster. So the people who effectively led to this point, of Eskom's demise, are still in charge, and now they're declaring a state of disaster on it. So we're trying to make sure that government stays honest, but with these initiatives such as the Community Action Network, we're trying to focus on community building, which means we're trying to see how we can help organize local communities such as yourselves, help supply you with the right information to engage responsibly with your municipality, work with your municipality, but also hold to account where it's needed. And I think that's very important. So yes, we're working on a national level through OUTA, but on a local level through the Community Action Network and through WaterCan, as Tim has indicated earlier. Just on another one of the questions, the Lightstone data, yes, you can link up with that. It's an estimate. So markets fluctuate on a weekly, monthly basis, depending on where you stay. So it's very important to go look at that. I've done it in my community myself. It gave me a good estimate, and I've objected accordingly with that information. But, it depends on the risk. So if your property rates shoot up exponentially, it's always better to object with more concrete information You can get an estimate through Lightstone, but then get professionals in to back you and get you the right details that you need, if that is necessary. So yeah, we are working on these kind of challenges, and we hope that a session like this, can really help you to participate more effectively. And we also trust that some of these projects that we can roll out will empower a lot of citizens to take back their rights and work with it efficiently. Thank you, Tim. That's it for me. If there's any other questions, Tumelo?
Yeah.
Yeah, the mic is on now. So I'd like to know if perhaps, because I know many people would want to object that have seen the valuations have gone higher than maybe 20%. Is there a template that you perhaps have of the objection letter, or an example of an objection letter that you can put on the site, on one of the pages, so that people can use that template instead of, because there's going to be a lot of influx to the office in Long Street. There's little time left. There's going to be a lot of people, and they might get upset now hearing the information that they can object. But is there perhaps a template that you have, or is there somewhere where they can check how to structure the letter so that it doesn't become a back and forth?
Can I answer that? I think, Tumelo, it's very good to have a covering letter, but it needs to be short and very crisp, and perhaps as businesslike as you can possibly make it. You will find that in the objection form itself, all the detail that is necessary in order to be able to get the objection processed is required and must be submitted through that form. In fact, it is prescribed that must happen. So additional information in terms of motivations or covering letters are, shall we say, supplementary to the objection form. The supplementary information which is critical here is an independent valuation, and whether that comes from Lightstone or from an estate agent is neither here nor there. And there's a question, in fact, that comes up on that level from OUTA and Tibe, which says, will the report from Lightstone be sufficient to dispute the valuation? The answer to that is yes. The dispute can be lodged off the basis of any, shall we say, well-reasoned and independently crafted valuation. It does not necessarily mean that Lightstone is correct and the municipality is wrong. What it does do is it offers another view. Remember that even though they do this exercise as a desktop process and they use formulae, because nobody can possibly physically get to every property in order to do an in-person valuation, the formulae which are used by an independent valuer may well be different. I do have to point out, though, that organizations like Lightstone, and especially the estate agent community, they are hands-on and understand market values as they stand at the moment. So the initial platform of which valuations are done, which is the urging to do it in a market-related way, is very much where they're coming from. I'm not saying that they are necessarily right and the municipality is wrong. What it does do is it sets up a platform for engagement where that can be thrashed out. And if additional information is called for the municipality or by the municipality, then ratepayers must be ready and willing to be able to provide that information. Be as cooperative and be as constructive as you possibly can, and you might just find that you engineer a happy outcome. I think, just stepping back from the individual detail, it's also important to note, and this is not necessarily to cast aspersions on the Plaatje municipality or any other individual municipality for that matter. However, I think it's generally known and perceived that we face a situation in this country where we are constantly being requested for revenues which go to government, taxes, rates, etc., etc. And I think if anyone has had the time or the inclination to read the Auditor General's report, you will see that an alarmingly high number of municipalities in this country are either dysfunctional or are having substantial difficulties in terms of the service that they deliver. So I think it's generally safe to say that we are facing a pretty universal problem where municipality services are in decline, yet their requests and their imposition of rates and taxes to generate revenue in order to sustain themselves is increasing. Now, against a request for further income versus declining services, it's perfectly understandable that ratepayers and citizens get pretty agitated and hot under the collar, because fundamentally that is unfair. So behind all of this process, there are some very important moral issues that need to be borne in mind. And far be it from us to suggest that people should rise up and start to be, destructively anti. But I do think it's very important that citizens and ratepayers take note of the fact that they have rights and that they are arguably the most important stakeholder in this whole service delivery chain. So at the end of that, they are the customer. At the beginning of that, the municipality is the supplier, and the supplier is demanding revenues, which unfortunately are mandated by legislation, so we can't escape them. We can't not pay them. So in the face of being compelled to pay those rates and taxes, when services decline, it's completely understandable and quite legitimate for citizens to say, enough's enough, stop now. And the issue of overreaching, dare I say, on property rates is one of the areas where municipalities sometimes are notorious for squeezing their tax base and squeezing their rates base in order to try and get more revenue out of it, but without necessarily a counter which says my services are going to improve accordingly. And on that platform, guys, with all due respect, if you have an issue, go for it. The processes are pretty clearly defined. Have a look on our website, and if you have any queries or any issues, please get back to us and we'll help you. So any closing thoughts? Tumela?
I've just been reading through the questions, and the one thing that comes across that I picked up now was the councillor being asked to help with the matter. It's unfortunately, the way I see it, it's an individual matter. If your business property is valued higher than it should be, it's your business that has to object. The councillor probably can help guide you in the right direction, but it's not their responsibility. As a property owner, residential property owner, the same thing applies. You can't leave this and say you'll solve it later. When later comes, it will be closed. So it has to be now.
I think that's a very important point. And while the value of ward councillors should be high and they should be engaged people, they're not in a position to be able to take up individual rates issues by and large. So if there is a complaint or there is an issue that ratepayers have with services and the conduct of the municipality in terms of the services they're expected to deliver, that's what the ward councillor is there for, in order to be able to represent ratepayers' interests. Individual cases, it is primarily the responsibility of the ratepayer. And while one may request assistance from a ward councillor, and that's fine, it's not up to them, and they're not necessarily the correct official representatives of the municipality in order to be able to rectify any mistakes or any miscalculation. So you're absolutely right, Tumela. Thank you.
I think just to, I sense that the folks are, in need of some guidance just on a template. If I may, I'm just going to share my screen again quickly and take you through that. So when you click on the link, as you've mentioned earlier, just to guide everyone through it again, if you go onto the website, which you'll get that link right just now, and you go through and you look at objecting, and you will follow the steps there, and it will guide you accordingly. When you scroll to the bottom of the Plaatje municipal website, it says Form A, residential objection, Form B, business, Form C, agricultural. Now, for the sake of this session, let's just look at, if we click on residential. This is basically the objection form that you need to complete. It's very self-explanatory, but I'm going to go through it quickly with you. So firstly, they ask the objector's information, and that is basically the property owner's information, and that needs to be completed accordingly. When you've completed this information on that specific property, and you will have to object every property on its own if you own more than one, You have to complete the property's details so that you ensure that that's accurate. Then also describe that residential dwelling. It's very important. The number of rooms, dining room, and all those kind of things, because obviously that's how a proper evaluation is conducted. It is where you stay, it's what the asset looks like, and the features of it. Whether it's sectional title units, that's again a different area. And then the market information, it gets quite important. If your property is currently on the market, or whether it was in the last 3 years, what the prices were and the offers received. This information I know is also on that Lightstone report on the previous sales on the property. But then when you get to the objection details section, this is where the particulars reflected in the valuation rule. So this is your municipality's information. You put that information in here. And then changes requested by the objector. And this is the information you believe that should be reflecting in this valuation. So just to reflect on this again, let's say, for instance, this is description of the property. This is my address, the category, residential or agricultural or business. Here's the address, and then the market value and the name of the owner according to the municipality. These changes on this side is where you object, and this is information according to you. And then they say, adverse features or further reasons in support of the objection, annexures can be provided. This is where you put your annexures on the valuation, whether it was Lightstone information or the information you got from a professional person, where you can attach that as annexures to this document. You sign the information, obviously, and then this is for the municipal valuers purposes and so on. So that's the whole document. And I think that gave a quick overview of what's to come. We don't have a template, but that's basically that should cover basically what people can expect. So it is literally a document, and as Tim rectified earlier, something you need to print out, complete manually, attach those annexes manually, and then go and submit it to the municipality. One piece of advice I'd like to give the viewers is make 2 copies and get the municipality to stamp and sign one that they've received it for your purposes. And just importantly, Tumelo's touched on it earlier, this is the legal process you need to follow before the 21st of April. After that, you have not followed a legal process, and you won't have a foot to stand on. So you won't be able to object. And that's very important. So I'd like to just challenge all the viewers to please share this information, even the email, the video, but share it with your neighbors and your friends and family members who do own properties in your municipality, because everyone will be affected by this new valuation rule. Thank you so much.
Yeah, good points. Thank you very much, Julius. Thank you for that wisdom. And yeah, following basics, making sure you get a signed receipt in the form of a stamped copy of what you've submitted to the municipality is excellent advice, because how often do we get feedback which says, oh, I lost the documents, and then it leaves the thing hanging. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're nearly out of time. Thank you very much for attending. I'm sorry about the technical glitches earlier, but I think the message has come through loud and clear. I'm very grateful to our guest panelist, Tumelo Musikari. Thank you very much for your insight and your understanding of the local situation, and the best of luck with your civic representation and your role as a prominent citizen. We applaud you for doing that, and we'll be talking more about that on a different platform in due course. To Julius Kleinans, our Executive Manager of Social Innovation. Thank you very much, Julius, and for your wisdom. Once again, sorry about the technical glitches, and thank you everybody for attending. Good luck.